All right, hello, welcome everyone to Critique Revolve, Rain Man Digital's exclusive movie review and media podcast. I am Michael, your host, and today I'm going to be breaking down, discussing, along with Thomas Cowley,
Hello.
Eddington, the new Ari Aster neo-Western black comedy film starring Joaquin Phoenix, Pedro Pascal, Luke Grimes, Deirdre O'Connell, Michael Ward, Austin Butler, and Emma Stone. It's set in 2020 during the COVID-19 pandemic in New Mexico. The film examines the political and social turmoil caused by the contested mayoral election fought between Sheriff Joe Cross and Mayor Ted Garcia, our two main characters of the film, with a running time of 149 minutes and a budget of $25 million. Whether or not this film will succeed critically and or box office depends on whether or not this movie grips the culture. And I say that because this film is literally all about our current culture. There was definitely a lot of deja vu when watching this film because 5 years ago wasn't that long ago. And
Time has lost meaning since COVID, but yes.
yeah, pertaining to COVID-19, the lockdowns, it doesn't seem like it was that long ago. So when you're watching this, you might get triggered at times.
It was something where, like, at one moment, depending on your political view, on one moment you'd be laughing and then you'd be angry and then you'd be, but I think everyone would be cringing.
Yeah. And that, I think, is the strength of the movie.
The
is that
takeaway.
Yeah, it's designed to not necessarily be a political stance. The film's not taking a political stance. It's simply conveying an aesthetic that we all lived through. The aesthetic of paranoia, of post-truth. Now, this is an intriguing film for me. Now, it's not a perfect movie by any stretch of the imagination. However, I define it as an intellectually stimulating film, specifically if you find the current social and cultural landscape worthy of study. Or, I guess you could say at the very least, curious about the cultural moment we find ourselves in. For instance, Eddington employs various surrealistic techniques to cultivate a type of aesthetic of confusion that refracts the instability of truth in a post-truth society. Now, it's worth mentioning that the surrealist edge of the film, though utilized with purpose and what I would call intent, at times the film doesn't quite work. It depends. It depends on how you look at this. At times, it doesn't quite work, or at the very least, because Aster wants us to be immersed within and to feel the state of mind many are stuck in regards to truth, the experience can become disorienting or alienating for some viewers, essentially mirroring the very fragmentation and uncertainty the actual film seeks to explore, but occasionally at the expense of narrative coherence or emotional clarity. And that's really the conversation that's surrounding this movie. Were some of these incoherent moments purposely designed that way? Was it done to help strengthen the idea of a post-truth society? Or was it poor filmmaking? Thomas, what are your initial thoughts?
This one's been tough because some people have asked me about it, and the quick Reader's Digest, I guess, was one where I'm like, I think it's something people should see, but I don't think that they'll like it. Or I think it's a good movie, but I don't think you should, like, I don't think I'd ever watch it again, but it might not be for everyone. Like, it's this weird, it's weird is probably the best way to say it, because you can't really talk about this movie without breaking it down simply from a logic standpoint or recounting the events. And it's one of those where I feel like there are two separate kind of movies. There's a point in which I was all on board for a good chunk.
Yeah.
But there's a point at which it loses me. And I think, and I hate to say I think with such definitive definitive uncertainty is kind of a good way to explain this movie.
Yeah.
Because I think I have never been like flipped on a dime, not even flipped on a dime, just kind of left wanting,
Yeah.
you know?
Well, it is the story of opposites. I like how you say that. It's contradictory in a lot of ways. And even the way you think about this film, you're constantly contradicting yourself, because I would agree that this movie is an exercise. I would call it an intellectual exercise, and it may be an intellectual exercise that people don't want to go through.
It's almost too fresh, I think.
Yeah.
In some ways, because of the world we currently live in, because of the events of the COVID pandemic.
It forces you to think. In a time when a lot of people don't want to think,
Right.
This movie is not designed for just simply ha-ha laughs. This movie is designed for you to go,
Reflection.
yeah. And I don't know if this movie came out at the right time because of that. I enjoyed it for what it was, but I don't always align with the mainstream. I can also enjoy these more obscure artistic endeavors, whereas there may be some people who are just like, you know what? This happened 5 years ago, 4 years, 3.5 years ago, if you take into account lockdowns and the continuing, media hype of COVID and the vaccines and people may not be ready to dip their toes in that. I feel like a movie like this would be better received, perhaps
in
maybe
another
5 years down the road.
I think I agree. I think this movie is a little too close to home in a lot of ways because, like you said, it's not that long ago, especially if you consider when did lockdowns and mask mandates and when did the fog kind of clear finally. It's 3.5 years ago or less for some areas. And I think that regardless of your political stance, there is a factor of some people lost people during that.
Correct, yeah.
And if not lost people, lost ways of life, lost mental health, lost, physical health. There's a lot of things that we're still feeling the ramifications from that, whether it be politically, psychologically, culturally, physically.
Yeah.
I feel like this is almost
We're in it
too
still.
raw of a subject for us to feel good about it. It's back in it's not like, Rambo 2 where we go and win the Vietnam War as opposed to the harsh reality.
Right.
But that was what, 10 years after the fact?
Mm-hmm.
And the first one was a lot more in line with the trauma of Vietnam for most people.
And also those movies weren't ideologically contested. Like in today's environment, everything is ideologically contested. We're at each other's throats. There's different views of looking at things. There was a book I read recently. I forgot who said it, and I even forgot which book it was from. But it was this idea that facts are like a potato sack. And in order to make it stand up, you have to fill it up with something. And what you fill it up with is context, interpretation, ideology, and then anyone can take facts and turn them into anything. That's why we have opposing history now being written as well, because a fact is a fact, but that fact can be skewed and manipulated for whatever argument you want to make. And that's at its heart is really what this movie is about. In interviews, Astor spoke of wanting his movie to feel kind of like a Rorschach test, where different viewers could see opposite meanings depending on their perspective or even their ideology. So more broadly, and this is where I take delight in this movie, this film can be viewed largely through the lens of post-structuralist thought, which emphasizes the instability of meaning, the multiplicity of interpretations, and the way subjectivity is fractured by language and discourse. So where the film scores points is in its ability to satirize U.S. culture. Keeping that in mind, post-structuralism, satirizing the U.S. culture, it is an unapologetic and often cynical look at events, attitudes, ideologies, and behaviors, particularly those that emerged during the COVID-19 pandemic. But I do want to stress, Thomas, this movie's not a hot take on COVID-19.
No.
It Rather, what I would say is it uses the pandemic as a foundation or a jumping off point for exploring more nuanced themes such as post-truth, how collective reality becomes fragmented under the weight of fear, misinformation, and ideological entrenchment.
But see, that's the thing, is that it uses the setting to launch things, right?
Right.
But it doesn't spend enough time after the launch to tell its point or to tell any point, really. It takes too long recounting events that, while that's where I had my attention for the most point, it's like right when it finally starts to say what it has to say, if anything, is when it kind of misses the pool and bricks itself on the edge of the pool decking.
Yeah.
Because I do think that, yeah, it's unapologetic, but it's also kind of more of a recounting, or even to some degree, like a making fun of some of the events. Because some of them were ridiculous in hindsight. You know, you look at like the opening, is not a spoiler, the opening scene, people another car comes up, a police car, to him in the middle of fucking nowhere, in the dead of night, and they're telling him to put his mask on. He's the only one in the car. There's no one around for miles. Forcing him to do that is a little insane in hindsight, that I'd see people driving by themselves with a mask on.
Yeah, and it seems ridiculous, but these are things that actually happened.
Right, but it doesn't take that and then move it farther along. It just kind of shows you that. And I think that Rorschach test element is a good comparison, because it does feel like someone's holding up a mirror, but it kind of just leaves it at that.
Do you think that's the point, though? Like, here's the mirror, you interpret what I'm trying to say.
I don't think it was executed well enough to give it that kind of credit. And that's where I feel like some of the storytelling fell apart. I was using the comparison earlier of Rambo or First Blood Part 1, where that came out in 82, 7 years after Vietnam. And that had a lot to say about the fallout of how we treated people and how veterans were looked at that time, and the trauma that caused, while also being an entertaining movie. But for me, the best part of that movie is his breakdown with his commanding officer at the very, very end. It's heart-wrenching and has something to say. And then a couple years later, we have Rambo 2, which is 10 years after the end of the war, and is a complete reinterpretation of reality, in which one man essentially defeats or saves Vietnam from the communist threat in America. This feels like it wanted to be First Blood, but didn't have an idea of how to get that point across, or even what it was really trying to say. I feel like it had an idea of, let's hold up a mirror and let's talk about this crazy moment, but then it just kind of stops there and doesn't take it far enough. One of the things that I've always harped on in any kind of media, even when I was in high school kind of thing, is you can't pull what we would make fun of in the Supernatural Crossroads show. It's like, well, what do you think about it? No, you have to have something to say, or be obvious that you don't. This is a weird mix in between, I feel, for someone who's more of an average audience experience. And that's why when I say, do you recommend it? I'm like, I honestly don't know.
Yeah. The only thing that changes in how I perceive it or what I take away from it is that I feel like this is all intentional. I don't think these were bad filmmaking mistakes. I think these were intentions. He intentionally did these things. He intentionally did what you just had characterized, how the film opened up. It set things up, and then here's a mirror. In a lot of ways, this movie, and this might be the problem with the movie for mainstream audiences, the fact that it feels like Astor himself is attempting to work through these problems. It feels like a philosophical dissertation in a lot of ways, where the person who's writing that philosophical essay is posing questions. And sometimes when you pose questions in that manner, you don't always have the answer. You're hoping others will draw conclusions. And that idea via the Rorschach test is what he's attempting to do. And I don't know if ultimately it's going to work for audiences. And based on what some people are saying, I don't think his ideas have worked.
No.
You know, where the movie begins to slip, and this is the part that I definitely agree with you, where it slips into incoherence or it becomes a bit more elusive, however you wish to frame it. You would say incoherent, I would probably say elusive. It happens as the film approaches its end. That's where it really starts to lose itself. And you can view this in a couple ways, either as a failure to properly convey post-truth elusivity, or as the film's ultimate success as it becomes the very thing it wishes to depict, a chaotic, unstable, and contradictory reality where truth is no longer something that can be cleanly grasped or resolved. Is that the intention? I feel like when you have a director like Aster, who is capable and competent, it feels like this is all intentional, but his intentions are going to go way over people's heads, or without wanting to make him sound like he's some super genius that we don't understand, it just was not a great decision for a movie.
I think the answer is somewhere in the mix, because he's a competent filmmaker, and from a directing standpoint, he's even good.
Yeah.
Hereditary, good. Midsommar, plot-wise, I have a lot of problems with it, but at least it goes for that horror, pagan folklore vibe that seems to execute well.
Filmmaking, I think when it comes to directing,
that's not in question.
Yeah, that's what I think you're talking about, right? Because he is a very good director.
He's a competent director, but I don't think the writing is his strong suit for a couple reasons. One, Hereditary is his first movie, and when you like feature film, and you're working real fucking hard on that first one. You have the most time with it, the most time to pore over every note and every page and does this work because you're trying to launch your career, or it was interesting enough to launch your career for some executive. Therefore, it had to be airtight. As you go along your path, you'd have less time to develop things, especially with these more esoteric ideas like Beau is Afraid. It doesn't exactly work for everyone. And it's funny because there was an article from Variety just yesterday, saying that Ari Aster's dad told him he shouldn't write the next movie after Beau is Afraid.
Oh.
He said, when it flopped, my dad did tell me, maybe you shouldn't write the next one. Oh. And he says, and Ari Aster said he might have been right. Because Eddington has been a budget of $25 million and made $9 million.
Yeah.
And his previous work with Beau is Afraid was a budget, I had it right here, was also a flop. There we go. Budget of 35, made 12. You've got two flops in a row now of esoteric kind of weirdness. Mm-hmm. And that's one of those things where you still have to draw in an audience to your film. Art house is one thing. Budget is one thing. But we've talked about this with even like the Norseman. You can't keep doing that and not be something that people can depend on for financial gain in this world in which mega blockbusters are having a hard time breaking even.
Yeah.
And I think if you went with a real indie budget of $1-2 million, which even that is like high for indie sometimes, and you had brought in $9 million, that'd be one thing.
See, I think that's Aster's sweet spot. I think $5 million for a movie. Like his ideas don't need $20+ million.
Exactly. His first two was $10 million for Hereditary, made 87.
Yeah.
$9 million for Midsommar, made 48.
Yeah.
And then he jumps to 35 and only makes 12, and 25 and makes 9.
The way you described Aster's filmmaking, I agree with you 100%. He's not just a competent director, he's a very good director. He's in control of his vision, but where he seems to suffer is in the writing department.
Yeah.
And that's not to say he's not a good writer, but listen, when you're an auteur, we talk about this all the time, you start to become self-indulgent, and you need someone to either write your shit or someone to look at you and say, I like what you're doing and I get it, and let's keep doing what you're doing. But what if we make some tweaks? Let's make some changes here. You need some pushback.
Yeah.
Because for me, ultimately, the movie didn't. It wasn't an abortion. You know, I enjoyed the movie. I did like the use of. There are numerous scenes in the movie that were just like jaw-dropping. There was a moment, no spoiler, for example, where there is relative silence and you see a character sitting in his living room, and behind him you see his window, the window from his house. He's sitting in his living room on a chair.
Spoilers.
Behind him, you see a window. Well, I didn't say who it was.
Spoilers.
You see a window, and then you just see this flash of light. It's a sniper rifle, or sniper muzzle. Dude, the delay between the impact and the light flash was fucking fantastic. So, and that's just one element of his directing and his visuals. He is an amazing director. There's another moment where Joaquin Phoenix's character walks into this outdoor event. There's no words. No one's talking. It's just music and tension. That's it.
Well, and there's a lot of good visual storytelling with the Native American cop from the reservation.
Yes.
Putting together pieces. Like, there's a lot that works from a directing and a visual standpoint. But when it comes to the story itself, it's like, I think you need to work with someone more than do these yourself. Because, again, Hereditary had something for it, but you also had much more time with that. Lawrence Kasdan is a great writer, and he's got a lot of strong movies. Not all of them are perfect, but on the directing side, it's not the same.
Yeah.
You know, Aaron Sorkin can pull anything out of his ass when it comes to writing, but he's not directing everything either.
Yeah.
Everyone wants to be Tarantino, and it's so hard to do that. It's
He
one
can't
of those,
even be Tarantino sometimes.
he,
If we're being honest.
yeah. Like, that's the thing, is that instead of trying to be other people, so you should be who you are and be what you're good at. And I think after Beau is Afraid and Eddington, it's like you need someone to at least come in and take a crack at what you've started in order for this to really be what it could be, rather than this kind of lukewarm reception to something that's going to leave, I think, too many people confused to be a box office draw.
Yeah. So I have a question I want to pose to you. There's an angle in the film that adds to the slipping into incoherence, air quotes, depending on how you view the movie. And this might bleed into spoiler territory, so just don't tune in. But this is part of what we want to talk about, because I want to work through this, because I know these are the questions for those who have watched the movie. These are the big questions, is the ending and what actually happened.
Yeah.
So towards the ending of the film, when the movie starts to slip into what I would call chaos, paranoia.
A surreal paranoia fantasy.
Yeah, where you're not really quite sure what's happening for quite a long time. Most of the third act, there's a group that is seeking to kill the sheriff, which is Joaquin Phoenix, towards the end of the movie. And it's not explicitly labeled as Antifa, but they do resemble the composite image of that leftist anarchist protesting group. Ari Aster has not confirmed that this group is in fact Antifa. In fact, he has said he has deliberately avoided clear-cut political labeling, which essentially...
Well, you say that.
Well, yes, he is refusing to label them as Antifa, but that is, for anyone that has followed news over the last 10 years or so, there is no other group that could possibly be.
Right.
Now, some people, you and I included, we had to talk about it. Like, who is that? Is that Antifa? Is it some other rogue group we're not supposed to know?
Is it a metaphor for certain groups?
Yeah, there's a lot of questions. And what I came to the conclusion I came to, is that you have to understand what Antifa is, who they are or not, in order to understand what the movie was trying to say, and whether or not it actually assists in the idea of post-truth, what exists, what doesn't exist, the whole epistemological slippage. So if you've read about Antifa, particularly when it was more prominent, a more prominent force prior to Trump's recent election, you'll recall that the movement was intentionally structured, or rather unstructured, as a leaderless, decentralized network. Now, this design originally was part of its tactical ethos to sow discontent, confusion, and even doubt about whether it existed at all. when Antifa first began receiving widespread media and political attention, there was considerable debate and at times outright denial over its legitimacy as a coherent organization, or even if it existed at all. So this elusivity is what Astor, in my opinion, used to further his thoughts on the so-called epistemological breakdown in today's culture, the post-truth society that we find ourselves in. So the elusivity is built in by its very function and utilization of Antifa. He is attempting to overlay that over his grand thesis, and hopefully through metaphor, it adds to that 1-2 punch he's trying to deliver to the audience. Now, does it deliver? Does it actually work? Will people actually draw that conclusion? Or will most people walk away not knowing what the fuck happened and just forget about thinking about it because they're too angry?
The second one.
Without a doubt.
Without a doubt, the second one.
Yeah.
It's one of those where if you have to explain it, you did it wrong. And it's one of those things that I remember in film school was that if people reading or watching your movie don't get it, not subtext or tiny messages,
okay, right,
but if they don't get the movie,
like what you're supposed to get in order to walk away thinking, oh,
correct,
I watched a movie.
Correct.
Okay.
And if you have to sit there like, well, what happened is, well, see, the people over there, if you have to do that, you fucked up.
Because that's justification.
Because it's exactly.
It's not explanation.
It's exactly that.
Yeah.
And there is too much left up for interpretation to get there. There's no real build-up when this left turn happens. Like, there's build-up for something completely different.
Yeah.
And then we go hard right turn. And you're like, wait a minute. And on top of that, there's so many other things left either unresolved.
A lot.
Or open-ended deliberately that it just leaves you with so many questions. And again, if we had started maybe an hour in, like if we were at the tail end, or if we hadn't wasted, frankly, I'm just going to say it, wasted a hell of a lot of time with this mayoral challenge running election.
Yeah.
And had just gone straight into the party one versus party two element and had been more of a building of tension and anger and animosity in this small town that's going to blow like a powder keg, you'd have had something more. But we took so long going down one direction, and then we go a complete other, and there's this third group with Austin Butler's character that comes in, and you're just like, wait a minute, what? And it only ties in at the end for one final being John Malkovich slap. Like,
but yes,
and
okay,
it's too messy.
Overt plot-wise, yes. But what, because you actually framed this perfectly when we walked out of the theater. Okay, so yes, plot-wise, overtly, it may not have a lot to do with the breadth of the story, right? Of the major functioning parts. But what does it do for the post-truth element of the movie? Because you explained it to me in quite detail. What does he do? He puts thoughts, ideas into Emma Stone's. What's her name? The character Emma Stone plays.
I don't remember.
Bunny. He basically takes her and fills her mind up with such nonsense that she believes things that are not true.
Right.
And it was this type of self-help,
like straight up Inception,
spiritual guru. You know, those douchebags, the
Yes.
good-looking guys with the perfect chiseled features that take advantage of people, almost
the
like
evangelical TV evangelos,
or the cult leader hopeful.
Yeah.
You know,
well, that's the same thing.
So there was a point to it. But what was the point? Was it simply allegory or was it plot? Because this is where I agree with you, Thomas. I'm all about allegory. I'm about you having 5 different movies in one. I am. You have the plot for regular moviegoers, right? Then you have, the subtext. Mm-hmm. Then you have some of the cinematography that will add to either subtext or either aid in plot comprehension. Then you have mise en scène, how you dress the frame. And I can go on and on.
Themes and various other
themes, philosophical concepts. There are tons of ways to tell the same story. But this is where Eddington, in my opinion, does fall apart. There is no attempt to bring all of them together coherently.
Right.
look at a movie like Oppenheimer, which functions. They have the overt plot,
Right.
which is very easy to follow, and it's kind of boring. But then you have the psychological elements. You have the retrospective elements, the themes. Then you have the philosophical contemplation.
Yeah.
All of those things are reified by the plot itself, and the narrative whole
Right.
makes us understand what's happening. This movie, even though I understand what he was attempting to do and how he wanted people to form their own interpretations, I feel like ultimately in his creation of his film, there are too many disconnects to where the philosophical, the thematic, the narrative at large, as well as the easy plot, it just doesn't quite cohere.
Well, and that's one of those things. Another thing I learned from one of my teachers was if your movie's not about one thing, it's about nothing. And that feels kind of like an example of this. It's not trying to say one thing with all the layers. Like you can have multiple like stories, like you just said, but ultimately they all should be funneling into one general idea.
Okay, look at The Boys, just because that's something you and I talk about on another show. Okay, so The Boys is, in its most simplest description, is about crude, perverse superheroes.
Right.
And it's most
on the surface level, yeah.
Okay, you dig deeper, what is it really saying? Specifically in the first two seasons. It's talking about the post what's the word I'm looking for? Late stage capitalism and all the decadence that follows and comes with that type of greed and excess.
The corruption of power.
Yes.
Yeah.
But if you're a regular guy watching that movie, you're not going to really know that. But that doesn't matter.
But it still works because you have the superheroes who are corrupt and evil. You have the company that's like corrupt and evil. You have the good guys who, when they have power, become corrupt and evil. And do you lose yourself in that and become the very thing you seek to destroy?
Because they're working together to say something, whereas these almost work against each other.
And that's it kind of does, because I feel like the first half is working towards one point of view. And then it immediately blames that point of view in the latter third. And so it's one of those things where I'm like, okay, if I'm reading this script, I'm like, I see you have a lot of good pieces here, but what are you trying to say? What is this about?
Yeah.
And it's like, well, what do you think it's about? I'm like, okay, dude, like, come on. And that's one of those things where I've never accepted that it's like an artistic interpretation. It's like, no, you still need some fucking baseline. You can design a house however fucking weird you want as an architect, but it still needs a foundation.
Yeah. Well, I do feel like he has a foundation, or Astor has a
I think
foundation
the front
for
half
Eddington.
of it does, and I think the latter half of like the garage has got a fault crack through it.
And I think that's what I've been trying to say most of this review. I don't think this is a product of bad filmmaking. I think this is because my definition of bad filmmaking is someone who doesn't know what the fuck they're doing. This guy knows what he's doing. But I think in this particular film, I think he made a lot of mistakes that he thought were going to work and bring certain elements together. And in all actuality, by wanting to talk about post-truth and using a type of surrealistic flair to add to the confusion and noise of our culture, I think the movie itself loses itself unintentionally loses itself completely by the end, because I'm someone who does think a lot about movies. That's how I prefer to watch movies. I don't mind like movies like The Brutalist. I bring that up because that's a movie you hate. I love The Brutalist.
Can't stand that one.
Loved it. I don't mind sitting, thinking, contemplating, wondering what's being said. But if after spending 10, 15 hours thinking about your movie, and I find myself not understanding it, but seeking to justify it, that's a little different. And if you go back and replay the conversations in your head, Thomas, that you and I have had leading up to this review, it feels a lot like I'm trying to make sense and justify.
Right. Like we left it with the same feeling, I think, at the end of the movie when we saw it. And over time, you've been, I feel like, going down the, well, here's why it could work and the justification, whereas I'm going down the more, well, here's why this actually doesn't work and this fell apart here. And we've kind of diverged, which I think is going to essentially be the experience of the audience.
Yeah.
You will either come away from this trying to make sense of what you saw or explain what you saw. like justify or pick apart.
And I don't really have the right words, it feels, for how I feel about this movie, because I don't dislike it. I actually do like it. Now, something we haven't talked about is the cast in great detail. I will say this. For me, this is probably one of Joaquin Phoenix's best roles. And he's played a lot of good roles. And I'm not saying this is the best, but this is definitely going to be on his top 5. Unfortunately, the movie is not going to be remembered as favorably. And sometimes because of that, the role the actor takes on usually is also forgotten.
Mm-hmm.
And that sucks, because there are moments in this movie where I completely forget that the main character, the sheriff, is actually Joaquin Phoenix. Because just the whole way, the whole manner that he chooses, the manner in which he plays the role is very different than anything he's done before. Now, someone may point to the Joker and say, well, the Joker is his best role and the most unique role he's ever done. And I would have you reference or look up, because I will reference, there you go, I will reference Bryan Cranston when he was asked about his role, Walter White, on Breaking Bad.
Mm-hmm.
And they talked about how great he was. And he, playing the humble actor, although I believe there was truth to what he was saying, he said playing bad guys are easy. You act maniacal.
Yeah.
You act crazy, unhinged, and you win an Oscar. He's all, you know what's hard? Playing a straight character. A straight individual, and not, sexually.
Yeah.
Straight
man.
Yes, a very normal person. Those are the roles that are hard. And I feel, in a lot of ways, Joaquin Phoenix played the everyman. He was just a regular, bumbling dude.
Kind of an idiot in some ways, but not in others.
I don't know if I would use idiot. I would just use kind of just...
Simple? I don't know.
Simple. Yeah, he's
not like... Yeah.
He's kind of a... I don't want to say he's a stock image of a go-to, dude, because that would be downplaying his role. But he definitely captures. Would you say the everyman?
Was it Joe Public? What's the phrase?
Yes.
I will agree. The acting is great from everyone. Pedro Pascal is not
very
He's
good.
been very overexposed lately, but he's great in this. Emma Stone doesn't get a lot of screen time, but what she does conveys the kind of character she's supposed to be. Luke Grimes is funny and terrible at the same time.
Yeah.
Deidre O'Connell was also good in an insufferable way due to her character. But Joaquin Phoenix steals the show. Austin Butler is perfectly creepy. There is a great cast here, and that's why, again, Ari Aster is a good director. He's got an eye for camera positioning and cinematography. He's got the ability to get what he needs from his actors. But I think when it comes to pen to paper, you kind of got lost in the clouds on this one, man. You needed some help on it.
I would also say there are legitimate funny moments in the movie.
There are.
And some of the things that Ari Aster actually does very well, and I'm not quite sure how to word this, so I'm going to need your help. He perfectly captures the stupidness of so many people. The stupidity of people, where a lot of people talk. It's what we see on the internet.
The ignorance.
You see people ignorance. You see people talk, and you realize they're not saying anything.
Right.
They're repeating things they heard. They're literally talking like they're making it up as they go, and they don't even believe it themselves.
Well, I had heard I had heard this line before, that if you can basically guess or accurately predict someone's opinions on everything based on their opinion on one thing, they're not a thinker.
Yeah.
Because they are just parroting what other people have said, or what the cultural zeitgeist is, or what's socially acceptable, because they don't question beyond that. And this element of ignorance that is kind of taken place, at least whether or not it be over the internet or America as a whole, or frankly both, I think it's
saying a lot about our mimetic culture as well.
It is. And I think had he kind of pushed more on some of that, it could have been something really special, but it loses its way to tell some other thing. And for me, the good example, like, it's not bad film making, but for me, it's a bad film. It's a bad story, I guess. Because one of my biggest, like, personal ways to tell is if I can envision, even if it's vague, an awesome movie from your trailer, and then I walk away disappointed. Like, somewhere you fucked up. A trailer is supposed to get me excited and have me and my brain fill in the blanks, kind of like how you don't see the shark in Jaws. But when you ultimately see the shark, it does work. And when I ultimately saw the movie, it didn't work. And so that's where, again, I'm like, you need maybe listen to your dad and don't write the next one. Make another movie, please.
It is,
but don't write the next one, at least not alone.
It is a weird feeling when watching this movie. There's a weird, odd, contradictory feelings, I think, that take over, because you and I both were enjoying this movie.
Yeah,
we were laughing. We're like, oh my god, this is perfect. Like, like the way he's capturing this. We said that numerous times when
and then
watching
we were both like, oh god, this is.
And then about 90 minutes into the movie, as the movie starts to move into its final act, we're just like, oh, what? You could tell both of us started to have problems because we quit talking to each other. And we just stared straight at the screen. And that's also another reason why I walked out of the movie very frustrated, because the first, I would say 75% of the movie works fine. It's that 25% that deconstructs. And again, that's probably his intention, but ultimately this is where directorial decisions sometimes don't actually add up, you know, to being what the director was hoping it would actually be.
Yeah.
So
there's just a lot of plot stuff where, like, it really does feel like we were setting up and moving towards one movie, and then we didn't get an ending for that, and we stapled on the ending of a different movie entirely. Because we, like, to get into a little bit of the spoilers, but his name is Officer Butterfly Jimenez, the Native American sheriff cop who's putting it together. Like, he goes to that character, I don't want to spoil 100%, but to that character's house and starts putting pieces together.
The character who gets killed. The character who gets killed.
No. After that, when he's putting all the pieces together.
Oh, yeah. He can. And then there's a Native American officer who starts to do his own investigation. Yeah.
And he goes to prime suspect's house, and then he just disappears.
Yeah.
Until he's seen at the very end. And then that's over real quick.
Yeah, that is
weird. And
it's
one of, like, we lose some of the characters partway through only for them to come back in the very last scene.
Do you think that character was an attempt to subvert our expectations? Because I
hate that phrase.
I know.
Oh,
I do
God.
too. Because it is the bane of all movie making right now. Well, I tried to subvert your expectations. I'm like, well, you didn't. You got me mad.
If you, and again, using metaphors all the time, if you subverted my expectations by making a turd look like a chocolate eclair, yeah, okay, you got me. That doesn't mean it's good.
And I'm not going to be mad about it.
Like, come on.
Yeah.
Like, that is not an acceptable excuse to me anymore.
But do you think that was the attempt?
I don't. That's the thing, is, like, I think it, because all of the movie up until a certain point is tracking.
Yeah.
And then there's someone got high on cough syrup one night to write the rest of it. And I'm like, okay, what?
Yeah.
And then tries to loosely tie things together at the end. And it's a taco that got soggy at the bottom. Like, it just at the end.
Yeah. You know, I will give this film a 67% on the RMD score. But I want to also add to that. I did like the movie. I'm frustrated with it, and I want to understand it more. This is the type of stuff I study, so I find interest in trying to figure it out. And that is all I'm going to say in justification for me liking it. And the reason why I even say that is because I want people to understand that's the reason why I like it. And if that's not your thing, you will not like this movie. If you don't want to watch a movie and have to think about what happened, don't watch it.
But see, that's the thing. That's where I'm going to give this one. Man, I don't. It feels bad to give it this low, but I think I feels right at the same time. I'm going to give this one a 45.
Really?
Because I was almost going to give it a 50, but the more that I think about it, the more that it just doesn't work. Because I don't mind a movie where you have to think, or that makes me sit there and go, wow, let me think of all these possibilities of what's being
to be
said.
fair, what I meant, I shouldn't say think, because that feels a little insulting to people. You hate surrealism, number one. You have stated it time and time again because I think you said something about surrealism as a cheat because it doesn't.
It's shorthand for why things don't make sense.
That's what you said.
Yeah, that's my opinion of it.
What a way to destroy an entire movement.
What the fuck is happening in this movie? Oh, it's okay. It's surreal.
Yeah, dude.
It's
right when the
that's not an answer.
Where were you at the start of the surrealist movement at the turn of the century? You would have ended it right there.
I would have stopped that shit.
See, and I dig surrealism.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I am so conflicted when it comes to this film.
Well, that's the thing is, like, I was going to give it a 50 because I was honestly like, I don't know if I recommend it. I don't know if I like it, but I don't hate it, but I do like it, but it's not good. And I was going to give it that 50. But the more that I look back and think about just basic plot elements of what should have been there, whether you want to say something or not, it's like you got all dressed up and didn't go anywhere. And so I got to take points off for that because while it's beautifully shot and it's got strong acting and Ari Aster's a good director, it just doesn't work.
Yeah, I feel attacked by you saying you getting all dressed up and have nowhere to go. I mean, that's my every evening.
Using a tuxedo on your couch.
Yeah. So, all right, what is that? An average studio score of what, 58, 57%?
What did you give it again?
67.
67? Give me 2 seconds. 67 plus 45 divided by 2, because I'm not good at math. 56. That sounds right.
Yeah.
That sounds right.
If someone told... See, that's why I'm not arguing with you about 50%.
I'm not arguing with you either. Like, I agree with your points. They just don't work for me.
So I'm wondering if this is a subjective experience type of film. Is that the genius of the movie?
But here's the thing. It is a subjective experience. But that it's like a Rorschach test, yes. But that doesn't mean it's good art. It's an ink blot.
It's
yeah, maybe you see something different than your neighbor, but that doesn't mean you're going to hang it on a wall. I honestly think if this had been another 5 years from now, had more distance, or even 12 because of the lockdowns and stuff, had it been a little bit longer and had it been more coherent about exactly what it wanted us to think about rather than just throwing out, hey, what do you think? Mm-hmm. I think it could have been really, really good. Yeah. But as it stands, it feels too early to talk about something too sensitive, not well enough. So before we close out, one last question. Ari Aster has 2 successes and 2 failures now. Horror and thriller-y, basically horror, has been where he succeeded. And these more outlandish, surreal, esoteric films have been where he has failed. And the question then becomes, to me, what does he do next? Because you're only as good as your last project, is the line for Hollywood.
Yeah.
He needs a win.
Can
easily slip down M. Night Shyamalan mountain.
Yeah, that's quite a steep fall, too.
Or you can climb up, I don't know, Spielberg's Everest.
The Scorsese Hills.
The Scorsese Hills or something like that. And so I'm sitting here thinking, you've got to have something good. Does he go back to horror? Does he have someone else write for him? Or does he get another chance soon? Or does he have to wait in the penalty box for a little bit? What do you think will happen? What do you think he does next? Or what do you think would be the right choice? I'm just curious.
If it were me and I had 2 successes that were horror films, or at least steeped within the occult, that's what I would return to.
Yeah.
For my 5th film, just so that I don't fall so far that people now attribute my name to garbage.
Right.
You have to be careful because that's what happened to M. Night for a lot of years.
Yeah.
He had to dig himself out of that.
I don't think he fully has.
He really hasn't. Even though he has made some pretty decent films since what is it, Nadir of his career. But I think his last 4 or 5 pictures have been just fine. They weren't stellar, but they weren't
weren't good
horrible.
enough either.
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying. He's slowly, with these other pictures, are slowly pulling himself out of that hole. So, yeah, I feel
It
like
needs to be a sure thing.
yeah, and I think the same thing with the studio. I think the studio's probably thinking the same thing. Like, listen, we want to do more of your films, but maybe we need you to go back to Hereditary type territory.
Yeah.
That also seems to be his. I think that might be his comfort zone. If that's, I understand directors do not want, especially directors like Astor. He probably doesn't want to be pigeonholed. He doesn't want to be put into a box and say, this is what you make and this is what we want you to make. But at the same time, if you're good at something, it's like Scorsese. Scorsese didn't want to be pigeonholed into gangster films, but he always returned to them. He would do 3 or 4 films that were different, but then he would return to what people, for the most part, would attribute his name to.
Like, look at someone like Spielberg. His filmography's all over the map. But what is running through is quality in a lot of them.
And
he's
high
got Jurassic Park,
escapism.
Jaws, Schindler's List, Saving Private Ryan, The Color Purple, Ready Player One. Like, it's all over the map. But he puts his all, and they're well made, and he doesn't try to do everything himself.
He's one of the few directors that are like that, though.
He is the rarity, but I think I love him, but I hate him. I think ever since Tarantino was this punk rock allure of I'm a writer, director, I do it all myself. It's in a one scene location, Reservoir Dogs, and everyone has wanted to be that.
Yeah.
Spielberg, Scorsese, Coppola, they didn't go out there trying to be auteur geniuses. They went out there trying to make movies. And now everyone's trying to like be the next Tarantino vibe, or it has set this bad precedent that you need to do all of it.
You can carefully curate your career.
You should.
But not to the point where it seems like you're curating your career.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I think he needs a sure thing. Horror might be it.
Yeah. Or, fifth film, bring us back to Hereditary cosmology. I would love to find out.
Talk to Aaron Sorkin. He directed his last few, and they weren't great, but he's an amazing writer. So let's take those two pieces and put those together.
There is no shame in getting a writer. Scorsese doesn't write his scripts. I'm sure uncredited, he adds tons of notes. Of course he does. But he officially doesn't write his scripts. Spielberg doesn't write his scripts.
Right.
The big names don't really write their scripts. Tarantino is one of a few.
The big writers don't really direct. Not many of them.
Yeah. I would even argue Nolan probably shouldn't write all of his stuff.
Oh, God. Have you seen Tenet?
Dude, how dare you? I actually liked that movie quite a bit. That's where our differences come into play, dude. Anyways, all right. That's it. Thank you, everyone. Later.